Hello everyone, this is Blender Guppy. In this video, I'm going to show you the changes that's going to be in the version 1.7.0 of the Random Flow add-on. And first off, we have changes in the UI and also some additional operators like random animation, normal picker, and join objects. This functionality has been separated from the apply mesh operator, and the new operator is split mesh, which basically undoes what join objects is the result of the join objects operator. And we have set origin. Set origin from before was from extras. I have now transferred it to mesh ops, and right here. So we have mesh data that also which also serves as useful for creating proxy meshes like extract faces, cleanup and merge objects, settings. So, and in edit mode, we have the randomize elements operator. Okay, so in random loop extrude, we now only have 5 layers to stack. If you wish to go past 5 layers, of course, you have to redo the operation or stack the next layer on the next operation using a secondary operation. Okay, so by removing the 6th layer here, I've allowed for proper margins for the UI, so you can now see the numbers much better. If you can't see the three decimals here, 3 decimal places here, you need to decrease go to preferences, pressing F4, and go to interface, and you need to reduce this. So mine is at 0.9, and I can see 3 decimal places here. So if you're only seeing 2 decimal places, you need to lower that one, that settings. Okay, so 5 layers only, and also loop inset thickness, a new one. And if we view it from the top side and increase the thickness, you can see the effects here. So it's kind of like random panels, the thickness here. But this is for the loop extrude, because it's used much differently than random panels. So I usually just use this for if I were to bake the detail and want the cut lines more obvious to the baker, or so the baker can see the cut lines, or if I want the viewer to see the cut lines more if I want to make the cut lines more visible to the viewer on a particular render angle. So use it on a small amount only, because using too much of this will sometimes result in geometric in distortions. Okay, so I usually just use 0.00 something just to make the cut obvious, but not too much as to cause any distortion. Okay. And base cuts, cut smooth, wrap around. So wrap around is a much better reaction now with low poly. or meshes that don't use any subdivision. So it tracks much better now. And this also works with random panels, just in case you're not using any subdivision on your meshes. And we have, so the clip center, I removed the offset, which is only used for cylinder for removing the, since I think it was too confusing to use anyway. And let's go at 80. Clip center, limited, so it's supposed to get rid of the bumps in the center line, but I've removed it because if you um, if you prep if you prepare your source mesh topology better at the start, then you really don't need to offset the center vertices anymore, just to get rid of the bumps from the subdivision in the script. If you have read the PDF file on the section on the, I've also finished the PDF guide in the curved surfaces section. It's right here. Okay. Round the loop, extrude, smooth. Okay. So random panels. We now have this toggle right here. Remove panels. This is invert panel amount. So that's reversing the effect. So if I have this, so let's clip center or get rid of get rid of the center line. And if I decrease this number, you can see the lines disappearing. So that's, and if I invert this, it will, instead of removing the panel outlines from the top of the list, it will reverse it and remove the panel outlines from the bottom of the list instead. But you can see that nothing is really, it's just, if I activate this, it's just really, it's just flattening the minimum. It's just flattening um the islands. Okay, it's not removing them. But if I toggle this on and decrease this, you can see that the panel islands is being removed instead of just being flattened. Okay. So this is the new toggle, remove panels, and also wrap around. Uh, um, as you can see, if I increase the height, the if I increase the height, the sides, the corners now expand or offset properly than it is before. So from before, it's expanding like it's curving. So right now, it's expanding correctly. So with wraparound, manipulating the height will be much slower, but it will have a proper behavior. With angle, it will use the old version, which is much faster, but of course, it's not wrapping around the sharp corners, so it's much faster. And this is also true with random loop extrude. It's also using the same behavior when offsetting the face islands. Okay, so random scatter. So increase decimal places for the scatter size. So this will also now behave with shift. If you had shift and drag, now it will now have the shift control hotkey to make the intervals or increments much slower. If you slide the values, press or hold shift to slow down the increments. Okay, so and random tubes. Random tubes length. We now have min and max. So let's try this. Set the margin and increase the cut, increase the population, bevel the sides, okay, and increase the offset. So maximum possible number of length, and we have minimum length. So any tube that has a segment that is equal or lower than the minimum value will be removed. So if you have a lot of one segments, it will remove that. So 1, 2, 3. So it looks much cleaner. And also we have segments in the align property. We now have the align property which have segments and angle. So what this does basically is straightens the tube to make it more aligned. So the segments makes the segments face in a particular direction, and if it has no choice but to turn, then it will turn. Okay, but if it can obey the align rule, then it will of course align itself. So right now, so for example, 5 segments. So for 5 segments, it will go straight. So like this. So for 5 segments, it will go straight and then until it has no choice but to turn. Okay, so if I increase the cuts, let's set them on to 5, and set the maximum length. Okay, so 30. So segments of 1. So as you can see, it's only turning because it's only being aligned at one segment, so it's turning like that. If I increase it to 2, so for 2 segments, it will follow the same direction and like that. Okay. So from before, you have no control over how the pipes will turn in higher subdivision. So right now, with the introduction of this new property, you have more control over the how the pipes react on higher subdivision. As you can see, it's much cleaner, and you can also remove pipes based on the number of segments. Okay, limit body. We have random cables. So changes on this. Okay, so minimum distance. I think, yeah, minimum distance. So if I have like that, you can see a lot of uh, cables right here. So the minimum distance property removes cables based on the distance between their start and end points. So if I increase this, it will start removing this. You can see this one got removed. Okay, so what you have in the end is only the really long cables. If you just increase and increase the minimum distance, so it will decrease the population of those small cables that aren't too affected by the slack. Okay, so if I increase the minimum distance to 5, for example, it only leaves me with this. So it's much cleaner. Okay, so that's minimum distance. Random vertex color. So random vertex color, I now have a minor UI change to, of course, indicate what these are for or how to control this. So shift click to add multiple or remove, just like this control right here. Left shift click to add multiple or remove. So random vertex color, if you shift click, you can add or remove. Okay. And we have the random animation. This is a new operator which basically animates the selected object or objects on the selected axis. So XYZ. You can also shift click to add multiple or remove. Be careful on using this with objects that have currently your are currently has an animation, because it will clear those and add what the random animation operator is supposed to do. Okay, so Z axis. So in order to see this, I'm going to press space. So that's my hotkey for animating. We have move and we have scale. So animation on the 3 transform controls and on the 3 axes. We have repetitive, continuous, and mirrored. Mirrored means that when it's finished the cycle, it will reverse. Continuous, the animation will be continuous or looping, and repetitive will repeat to, for example, this is 10. No, let's go to move. So move. So with repetitive, you can see that it's once it's reached the end frame, it will return to the first frame. With continuous, it will just go forever. With mirrored, it will reverse, go back. There we go. And we have pivot, which is geometry and cursor. Geometry, using this will, of course, actively change the origin of your object. And geometry means that the center means the average center of the vertices in your objects. So for example, if I mirror this, oops, and change the origin to geometry, much like what this is supposed to do. Then the geometry will be placed. The center of geometry will be placed instead on this part here. So set origin to geometry. There we go. And it's also the same with this. State geometry is a okay. Probably not. Okay, so oh yeah, I fixed that. I already fixed the behavior when it comes to mirror. So, but that's what this is supposed to do. Set origin to geometry, and we also have cursor as a pivot point. Random animation cursor. So we need to apply the mirror first before if we can use the cursor. So mesh ops, apply mesh, random animation, 3D cursor. Of course, you can select multiple axes, but not multiple animation. If you wish to move it or scale it, then you have to do to apply these operator again. But this time, set it to move and do not clear the animation. So this is also moving and it has retained the animation from before. Okay, so that is our random animation. We have the normal picker, which also which is used to pick the direction of the model when animating. So, for example, I have this as a guide, and I want to turn this on the direction this is facing. So, the PDF guide will explain how this works. So, basically, you need to have the model in the Z, standing in the Z axis, or yeah, facing facing the Z axis. So, if I pick this normal, so this will turn it on the based on the Z axis of the negative positive Z axis of the model. So random animation. So now that we picked our normal, when we use random animation, rotate in the Z axis and add parent empty first and then align to normal. This will use the normal that we have saved from using the normal picker operator. Then wait, there we go. Z. So we need to add the parent empty first, then we can use the save normal to point it to the direction that we want. Because if we don't use the parenting system and we manually point this while it's rotating, point this in that direction, we have messed up the animation. This needs to have a parent in order for it to turn correctly. Z axis. So it won't turn unless you set the axis. Okay, so that is our random animation. So this is a pretty new operator. It has no video yet, but you can read the PDF guide for that. So panel screws. Okay. Panel screws and flange couplings. Also has a change. Um, let's use cylinder. Captive date. Okay, so for spacing, it's much simpler now. There's only one parameter to control the spacing instead of two from before. And this is also true for random tubes. I mean the flanges and couplings. Custom flange one, increase the radius. In case you're not seeing it, increase the radius. And we have even count at the start. That means that all the pipes have even flanges on their body. So if we disable this, we now have the spacing. So it's much simpler now. It's only one property instead of the two from before. And we have join objects. Oh yeah. Panel screws. We have the randomized elements. So basically what this does is randomize the indices or the index of selected verts, edges, and faces. And it does so based on the selection mode that you're in. So if I press 1 and use the operator, um, let's enable the experimental, if I can find it. No, I can. Okay, so I'm looking for the experimental developer extras. There we go. So indices. Okay, so if I'm at so this if you're at vertex selection mode, pressing 1, you can see the indices of the vertex or the vertices. Pressing 2, you are at edge selection and you can see the indices of the edges. And pressing 3, you're in face selection mode and you can see the indices of the uh, faces. So if you're at face selection, vertex selection, and you use the randomize elements, then it will only randomize the indices of the vertex. If you're at edge selection, it will only randomize the indices of the edges, and same with faces. If you wish to randomize all three, press 1, Shift 2, and Shift 3. Randomize elements. Okay? So if you only wish to randomize, for example, edges and faces, Shift 2, select the edges first, Shift 2, Shift 3, and randomize elements. It will also randomize only the elements that are being selected or shuffle them and not affect the rest of the indices. Okay, so why is this here? So Sometimes, but rarely does it happen. Sometimes s- the uh, the script that enables the add-on to produce the face islands and the tubes. So the script uses face and edge indices. So loop extrude and panels uses face indices, and random tubes uses edge indices to create their random patterns. But sometimes the certain indices in this pattern can produce weird results in the randomization. So you can use this in order to just shuffle the indices and affect the result of the randomization if the result is too weird for you. So it's just here in case you need to use it. But for vertex mode, um, the add-on doesn't use it currently, use the indices. So I just put it here so maybe you can use it for other things. Okay. And we have join objects. Let's try it. Oops. 50 as well. Let's remove the indices. So from the last video, um I've shown what the join objects can do. So basically what this does is, so for example, this is a sci-fi crate I'm using. The result of the randomization will have a lot of objects because this is non-destructive. Then you can select all the objects from the randomization and join them as a single object. And I'm going to use my source mesh as the join to object. And now it's a single object or single mesh, and it becomes more manageable. But in edit mode, there's no welding or merging going on. They're still separate pieces or separate mesh. You can still select the cube object actually, and their names were used as their names were used for the vertex assignment. So cube, you can use this to highlight or isolate parts of the mesh once they are joined. You can use the vertex group list to select them or deselect, or you can go to vertex select mode by pressing number 1, pick a vertex, press shift G, select similar, and pick the vertex group. So you don't have to go here and select the vertex. So what if it's too hard for you to pick a vertex? Then go to edge or face mode, select face, then switch to vertex select by pressing 1 and press shift G. If you're at face selection mode, vertex selection, using select similar, the vertex group does not appear. So you have to um, switch back to vertex select mode using number 1 and press shift G and press vertex group. Okay, so, and we have split mesh. So basically what this does is use the vertex assignment of join objects from here to separate them as single objects or to separate them as multiple objects using the names here as their names, the names of the vertex groups as their names. Okay, so split mesh, so split from our cube object, and now they are split again, just in case you need to split them again. Okay, and we have set origin. So set origin, this is a previous operator, and you can read about it in the PDF file, PDF guide. So basically what this does is just, this is meant to work in tandem with the random scatter operator by setting origins quickly of selected objects. So for example, I want to set it at their lowest element. Set origin. Okay. So now, and if I use them in a selection, random scatter collection, there we go. Scatter size. Affected their scale. But you get the idea. So their foot is now touching the, instead of um, origin to geometry. So now they're overlapping the source mesh because their origin is at the center of their of their geometry. Okay, so what else we have? Randomize elements, abstract faces. Okay, so the the grid project and quad slice, the remove doubles and remove two EVs has been removed. Taggles, the taggles has been removed, and we now have a new property called the distance. If we increase this, you can see the lines are joining up based on their proximity to each other. So you can use this to clean a busy result like that. And it's also, quad slice also has this. And for quad slice, so selecting two separate islands, if I press tangent, so L and L, Shift H. So these two islands here, quad slice. Okay. Quad slice and length. So now the islands only cut themselves. So for example here, tangent, unless I press all faces. So from before, if you select two islands, this will be the result. It's almost like they're cutting each other like that. So right now it only cuts the island, that particular island, unless you select the all faces, um, all faces option, quad slice selected, and this is the result from before, from the old version. Okay, so everything cuts everything else because of the selection. So in version 1.7, it only cuts that particular island like that. Okay, so if I select this and this, they will only cut themselves and not each other in this. And this is from the old version. So in the old version, they're cutting each other even if I just use the selected and length faces. So in this version, the face islands will only cut themselves. So from before, in order to avoid cutting into other islands, you have to select individual islands, then cut them separately. So right now you can just select them all and not worry about other points from other islands affecting each other. And we have also grid project 0.001. Increase the size. Where is the size? And cuts. And you can see the effect here. If we increase the distance, now we can pick areas to repair using quad slice. And you just manually remove this. And now the um, in-gun phase has now been codified. Now you can use the random operator. Okay, so there are a bunch of other fixes or multiple other fixes in the script that makes the using the add-on much better. But of course, they're uh, programmer language, so I don't have to bother telling you that. So that's it for the 1.7 version and what to expect uh, with it. And I will pass it in a few days, probably in a few hours or a few days, in case um, I'll just watch out if few bugs might appear and decide if it's ready for the shop or the stores. Okay, so that's it. I will also include this video in the email once I update the stores. And also I will send coupons for those who have bought Isotools Pro and Cuber from before to opt to Creative Bundle because I will no longer be um tr- treating them as selling them as individual products but only as in the bundle. And also I'll be changing Isos Pro and Cuber into Creative Flow as a single product beginning next this month. So I will send coupons for to those who have purchased Isos Pro and Cuber before to let them opt into the bundle instead. And the development or further development of those tools will be on that uh, product. Okay. So if you have any questions, make sure to use the comment section and um, the links in the description. And thank you for watching.